Hello everyone, and welcome to the next episode of A Comprehensive History of the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. Today we are moving on to 2009, the first full year of the Synchro era. Kicking things off, 2009 wouldn't be beginning with a tournament, pack release or ban list, but a pair of Shonen Jump promo cards. Dandelion and Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon would be offered as freebies to anyone who bought into a trial issue subscription of Shonen Jump magazine. Dandelion is a level 3 Earth plant monster with 300 attack and 300 defense and an effect that reads, when this card is sent to the graveyard, special summon 2 fluff tokens. These tokens cannot be tributed for a tribute summon during the turn they are special summoned. Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon was a level 12 Dark Dragon type monster with 2800 attack and 2400 defense. You can remove from play one Dragon type monster you control to special summon this card. Once per turn, you can special summon one Dragon type monster except Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon from your hand or graveyard. Dandelion and Red Eye's Darkness Metal Dragon are examples of cards that I like to refer to as being bulletproof by design. No matter how much the game speeds up or is power crept, these two cards will always be good. As you may remember from the previous episode, Dandelion was preemptively put to 1. Thanks to the OCG, the power level of this card was known way ahead of time. This means the TCG has never been able to experience Dandelion at 3 copies. Coming into 2009, the tournament meta would continue where it left off, as Tele-DAD decks completely dominated defense. Shonen Jump Houston would be run by Jerry Wang, as he played what is considered the definitive Tele-DAD deck list. That same month would see Shonen Jump San Francisco be run by Alejandro Reyes Suarez. Even though both players would win their respective tournaments with Tele-DAD, Jerry Wang's build would end up being the one people most fondly remember. The key difference between Jerry Wang's build and other Tele-DAD builds would no doubt be the inclusion of double Royal Repression and triple Solemn Judgment. February would see the release of Duelist Pack Yusei, while March would see the release of a new Shonen Jump promo card. Armriarm is a level 4 light machine synchro monster with 1800 attack and 1200 defense. This monster requires 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters as its summoning requirement. Once per turn, you can equip this card to a monster or unequip it to special summon this card in face-up attack position. While equipped to a monster by this effect, that monster gains 1000 attack. When the equipped monster destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's attack. Armriarm would be among the first low-level synchro monsters in the game, and even to this day it's one of the best. On their own, the attack boost and Flame Ringman burn effect aren't much, but when you combine them together and put them into a card that you can just fetch out of the extra deck, it becomes a really good piece of utility. It would even go on to have an entire OTK dedicated to it. Coming out of Shonen Jump magazine would be Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, a level 8 Dark Machine Fusion monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. Its materials would be Cyber Dragon plus 1 or more machine type monsters. This monster cannot be used as a fusion material monster. You can only special summon this card from your extra deck by sending the above cards from either side of the field to the graveyard. The original attack of this card is equal to 1000 times the number of fusion material monsters used to special summon it. Would it surprise you to learn that this card is still used today? Thanks to its ability to remove monsters from either side of the field, Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon wouldn't be used so much for its attack gaining effect, but just for the fact that it was simple removal of problem cards. If your opponent was to play something like Card Trooper and Machine Duplication, you could just summon a Cyber Dragon on your turn and then fuse all 4 monsters into a 4000 attack beat stick. The utility of this card's summoning condition would go on to inspire a whole slew of extra deck monsters. March would come along, and with it would be the biannual change to the Forbidden Unlimited list. Surprisingly, there would be no cards forbidden. Dark Arm Dragon, Reinforcement of the Army, Card of Safe Return, Chaos Sorcerer, Gladiator Beast Bestiary, Go-Yo Guardian, Plague Spreader Zombie, Emergency Teleport, and Masuki would all go to 1. In semi-limited, we would see Goblin Zombie, Green Babu Defender of the Forest, Rise of the Storm Monarch, Allure of Darkness, Destiny Draw, Ultimate Offering, Summoner Monk, Mind Crush, Destiny Hero Malicious, and Gold Sarcophagus. Phantom of Chaos, Manticore of Darkness, Nobleman of Crossout, Twin-Headed Behemoth, and Book of Moon would all go to free. While no cards would be forbidden, these changes would have a significant impact on the meta, as the Tele-DAD strategy was essentially wiped out overnight. The hits to Rotor, E-Tally, Plague Spreader, Allure, Destiny Draw, and Malicious would just make the deck too slow and inconsistent. March 2009 would prove that Konami giveth and Konami taketh, as we saw the release of Crimson Crisis. Tele-DAD may be gone, but it's fine because we have a new dark archetype in town. Say hello to Blackwings. Blackwing would be an archetype consisting entirely of Dark Ring Beast monsters. Blackwings would be the deck used by the character Crow in the 5Ds anime, and unlike most anime decks, these were legitimately good. Blackwing Boar with the Spear is a level 4 Dark Ring Beast type monster with 1700 attack and 800 defense. If you control a Blackwing monster other than Boar with the Spear, you can special summon this card from your hand. During battle between this attacking card and a defense position monster whose defense is lower than its attack, inflict the difference as battle damage to your opponent. Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind is a level 3 Dark Ring Beast tuner monster with 1300 attack and 400 defense. If you control a Blackwing monster other than Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind, you can special summon this card from your hand. Once per turn, you can halve the attack and defense of one face-up monster your opponent controls. Blackwing Sirocco the Dawn is a level 5 Dark Ring Beast monster with 2000 attack and 900 defense. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can normal summon or set this card without tributing. Once per turn, you can select one face-up Blackwing monster you control. It gains attack equal to the total attack of all face-up Blackwing monsters on the field, except itself. Monsters other than the selected monster cannot attack the turn you activate this effect. So, fun fact about these 3 cards. In the 5Ds anime, they debut in the same episode, in the same duel, in the same turn, and they are used to perform an OTK. Blackwing Armor Master is a level 7 Dark Ring Beast Synchro Monster with 2500 attack and 1500 defense. It requires one Blackwing Tuner plus one or more non-tuner monsters to summon. This card cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. If this card attacks a monster, you can place one reg counter on that monster at the end of the damage step. You can remove all reg counters from your opponent's monsters to reduce the attack and defense of each monster that had a reg counter to 0 until the end phase. What can I say? It's just really strong. And yet, even with all these things going for it, Blackwing Armor Master wasn't even the best synchro monster released in Crimson Crisis. Dark Strike Fighter is a level 7 Dark Machine Synchro monster with 2600 attack and 1800 defense. Its summoning requirement is one tuner plus one or more non-tuner monsters. You contribute one monster to inflict damage to your opponent equal to its level times 200. If you summon 2 Dark Strike Fighter on the same turn and manage to get them both to attack your opponent directly, you could then tribute those 2 Dark Strike Fighters together to inflict a grand total of 8000 points of damage to your opponent. So not only could this card go over almost anything thrown at your opponent, but it could still get to their life points without even needing to attack. Crimson Crisis wouldn't be the only cards released in March, as we saw the love come from Konami with even more product. Released on March 10, 2009, we would get the Duelist Pack Collection. Not only would this tin give us reprints of Duelist Pack Yusei, but it would also give us promo cards, including preview cards for the next set, Raging Battle. Of these preview cards, the most significant would be the Iron Core of Krokimeru and Krokimeru Guardian. Krokimeru would be an archetype that revolved around Iron Core, as its monsters would be very powerful, but would require either an Iron Core of Krokimeru or a specific type of monster in your hand to stay on the field. Take for example Krokimeru Guardian. This level 4 Earth Rock monster had 1900 attack and 1200 defense and an effect that reads, during each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you send one Iron Core of Krokimeru from your hand to the graveyard, or reveal one Rock type monster in your hand. You can tribute this card to negate the activation of an effect monster's effect and destroy that monster. As level 4 monsters go, Krokimeru Guardian is insanely good, but it has that downside to help keep it balanced. If you don't have an Iron Core or a Rock monster in your hand, you can't keep it on the field. Releasing at the end of March would be the Spellcaster's Command Structure deck, but most importantly, Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk is a level 4 Dark Spellcaster monster with 800 attack and 1600 defense. This card cannot be tributed. When this card is normal or flip summoned, it is changed to defense position. Once per turn, you can discard one spell card to special summon one level 4 monster from your deck. It cannot attack this turn. So yeah, this card can just straight up summon monsters from the deck. Summoning monsters from the deck is without doubt one of the best card abilities you can have in Yu-Gi-Oh! And there's more than enough to balance out the discard cost. As you might have noticed, this card was already put to semi-limited before it was even released. Moving into spring, we would get a new season of the Shonen Jump Championship. A new season meant a new prize card. Dark End Dragon is a level 8 Dark Dragon Synchro Monster with 2600 attack and 2100 defense. It requires one tuner plus one or more non-tuner Dark monsters. Once per turn, you can have this card lose 500 attack and defense, and send one monster your opponent controls to the graveyard. Not far behind it would be the Shonen Jump Magazine promo, Beast King Barbaros. This level 8 Earth Beast Warrior monster would have 3000 attack and 1200 defense. You can normal summon or set this card without tributing. If you do, its original attack becomes 1900. You can tribute 3 monsters to tribute summon this card. When you do, destroy all cards your opponent controls. Beast King Barbaros was essentially 4 cards in one. The new Shonen Jump season wouldn't be without its controversies, however. In the background, there had been a battle raging between Konami and Upper Deck Entertainment going all the way back to 2008. It was revealed that Upper Deck were conspiring with an outside company to create and sell their own Yu-Gi-Oh! Products. These promo cards would come with a whole set of issues that would have alarm bells ringing at Konami. Normally, when Konami releases promo cards, whether it be a video game promo, a reprint, or a tin promo, those cards would have their own unique prints code and number. In this case, however, the promo cards would be based on cards from actual booster sets. The biggest thing that gives these cards away is their foil in the bottom corner. On an authentic first edition card, the foil should always be gold. In short, these cards were counterfeit, not approved by Konami at all. This would mark the beginning of the end of Konami's working relationship with Upper Deck Entertainment, as they would go to court to battle for full control of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game and offense. The Konami vs Upper Deck period would be one of great uncertainty for players, as national events such as the Shonen Jump Championship series would slow to a crawl. Once Konami wrangled back control of the game, however, things would start moving again. And move they would, as April 2009 saw Shonen Jump Anaheim be run by Jeff Jones and his Skill Drain Beatdown deck. Now, Jeff Jones isn't your typical Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. In fact, he's actually one of the most famous Yu-Gi-Oh! Players of all time. What sets Jeff Jones apart from any other player in the game is the creativity of his deck building. No one else was running this deck at the tournament. They'd be running Black Rings and Light Storms and other such archetypes. Jeff Jones' deck was so unique that it wasn't even given a name. It was simply known as the first place deck. When you take a step back and look at the deck list, it all makes so much sense. Skill Drain lets you pay 1000 life points to negate all monster effects on the field. But here's the beautiful part of the deck. The monster effects can still activate even when Skill Drain is out. Beast King Barbaros can still be normal summoned from the hand, but because of Skill Drain, its attack doesn't become 1900, it stays at 3000. Dark End Dragon can still special summon itself from the hand even while Skill Drain's on the field. Destiny Hero Malicious can still banish itself from the graveyard. Cyber Dragon can still summon itself from the hand. Dark Grepher can still summon itself from the hand. Mystic Tomato can still float. Sangan can still float. Plague Spreader Zombie can still special summon itself. And finally, Destiny Hero Defender does not have its negative anymore. Your opponent does not get to draw cards when it's on the field. The ability to see this potential in Skill Drain and play around it while simultaneously screwing over every other player is just one of the many things that separates Jeff Jones from everyone else. The end of spring would see the release of Raging Battle, a very, very good set packed with all sorts of useful cards. Let's just look at a few quick highlights. Black Whirlwind is a continuous spell card. When a Blackwing monster is normal summoned to your side of the field, you can add one Blackwing monster from your deck to your hand that has less attack than that monster. So off the bat, this has amazing synergy with Blackwings. If you summon your Sirocco, you can basically just add any other monster in the archetype to your hand, such as Gale the Whirlwind, then immediately special summon it with its effect and go into a Synchro Monster. Unsurprisingly, this was a must-have in the deck. Deep Sea Diva is a level 2 Water Sea Serpent Tuner monster with 200 attack and 400 defense. When this card is normal summoned, you can special summon one level 3 or lower Sea Serpent type monster from your deck. This card on its own was incredibly useful back then, even if you weren't playing a Sea Serpent based deck. The beauty of Deep Sea Diva in the early Synchro era is you didn't need to run a Sea Serpent focused deck to run it. Deep Sea Diva could summon copies of itself, meaning that a normal summon would bag you 2 tuner monsters on the field. That is an incredibly useful effect, especially if you happen to be playing a deck that is heavy in special summoning such as zombies. As the years would go on, Deep Sea Diva would eventually find its way into dedicated water decks, and is to this day one of the best water monsters ever created. Evil Fawn is a level 1 dark plant monster with 100 attack and 300 defense. You can tribute this card to inflict 300 damage to your opponent and special summon up to 2 Evil Fawns from your deck in face-up attack position. Those monsters' effects cannot be activated. You're probably noticing a theme with a lot of the good cards released in the Synchro era. There's a lot of summoning from the deck. This is one of the natural consequences of Yu-Gi-Oh! Power Creep. First it was about special summoning from the graveyard, then it became about special summoning from the hand. Now it's about special summoning from the deck, whether that be the main deck or the extra deck. The only way they could top this trend is if they let you special summon from the side deck. Forbidden Chalice. This quick play spell card lets you target one face-up monster on the field and give it 400 attack, but its effects are negated. The attack boost is not really an issue, because it's the effect negation that you want. Use it on your opponent's monster, stop their engine, use it on their Deep Sea Diva. 1 for 1 is a regular spell card with the effect to send one monster from your hand to the graveyard to special summon one level 1 monster from your hand or deck. Again, summoning from the deck. This is the level of speed that the game has reached now. Phylixian Cluster Amaryllis. This is a level 8 fire plant monster with 2200 attack and 0 defense. This card cannot be special summoned except with its own effect or with Phylixian Seed. If this card attacks, it is destroyed after damage calculation. If this card you control is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. During your end phase, you can remove from play one plant type monster from your graveyard to special summon this card from your graveyard in defense position. In 2009 this card wasn't very good, but 9 years later it'd be part of a very infamous FTK deck in the OCG, where you were able to put Phylixian Cluster Amaryllis in your graveyard, then in the end phase, summon it onto the field, whereas it'd be immediately destroyed and sent to the graveyard to burn your opponent for damage. Then, because it was still the end phase, it would immediately summon itself back out and then go to the graveyard again to inflict another 800 points of damage, and then you'd keep looping this until your opponent ran out of life points. Such an effect probably would have been possible in 2009, but the game wasn't at a level of speed yet where you could make a plant deck capable of carrying that FTK. Fortunately, the card would never get to hit those heights in the TCG. Though the FTK technically was possible, I should know, I've done it. Howver Dragon. This level 7 Earth Machine Synchro Monster has 2300 attack and 2500 defense. It requires 1 tuner, plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. Once per turn during your main phase, you can select 3 equipped spell cards from your deck. Have your opponent pick one of them at random and add it to your hand. Return the remaining cards to your deck. If this card would be destroyed while equipped with a spell card, you can send that card to the graveyard instead. Howver Dragon had decent protection, but that wasn't really what anyone cared about. The ability to search your deck for an equip card and add it to your hand is very good, especially when you can pick the same card 3 times to rig the selection. With there now being so many equip cards that allow you to special summon monsters from the graveyard or banish pile, you'll be unsurprised to hear this card still occasionally sees play today. Trap Stun is a normal trap card that reads, negate the effects of all other trap cards on the field during this turn. Trap Stun was a pretty good utility card. It was essentially a non-continuous Royal Decree, something that you could use against your opponent whilst keeping your own traps live. It would go on to see regular play over the next couple of years. Moving into the summer, we would see new releases in the form of video game promos and starter decks. Infinity Archfiend would be included with the video game Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D Stardust Accelerator World Championship 2009. This level 4 Dark Fiend monster had the effect where, when you have no cards in your hand and draw this card, you can reveal it to special summon it. When this card is special summoned, if you have no cards in your hand, you can add one Infinity card from your deck to your hand. Infinity is an archetype from the 5Ds anime that's famous for utilising the no-hand combo. In other words, it is an archetype whose monsters benefit from additional effects when the player has an empty hand. With its ability to search out any Infinity cards without being a once per turn, Archfiend would be the backbone of the deck for many years. The starter deck would bring in some decently strong Synchro Monsters, but the real star of the show was X-Saber Airbellum. This level 3 Earth Beast Tuner monster had the effect where, when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by a direct attack, discard one random card from your opponent's hand. In a vacuum, that seems okay, but what really made it shine was its synergy with Rescue Cat. With Rescue Cat's effect, you could special summon an Airbellum and another beast monster from your deck and immediately go into a synchro summon. Which, you know, is pretty good. August 2009 would see the World Championships be hosted in Akihabara, Japan. The final would be a showdown between Benjamin Tan of Singapore and his Blackwing deck versus the Gladiator Beast deck of Taiwanese player Chen Yanjui. Blackwings would be the deck to win the day, as Benjamin Tan Honghui ended up taking home the gold. This deck list would be the accumulation of the hard push Konami had given the archetype during the year, as all but one of the monsters in the deck were Blackwings. The main deck roster would be designed to go over anything, as the likes of Gale the Whirlwind and Kalute the Shadow would be able to boost and decrease monsters' attacks. With triple Black Whirlwind and double Allure of Darkness being available, it was very easy for the deck to fetch its essential monsters for its combo plays. With the core engine being so straightforward and solid, the only part of the deck that really needed any real consideration were the power cards. Dark Arm Dragon would feature in the deck thanks to the abundance of dark monsters it could use as fuel. Icarus attack would be an even 0 in card advantage, but thanks to the Blackwing engine, the user would always be in the more advantageous position after using it. The main deck on its own was very strong, and could probably beat a lot of decks as is. The extra deck then would come to be the cherry on top, as it utilised every power synchro in the game. Monsters such as Goyo Guardian, Blackwing Armor Master, Black Rose Dragon, Stardust Dragon, and Colossal Fighter would feature as standard. Also featured was Dark Strike Fighter, which could very easily perform the previously mentioned OTK strategy. The sideboard would leave this deck handily prepared for Worlds. DD Crow had the potential to hit almost every deck in the format, as the graveyard had become a key part of many combo strategies. The same would apply for Double Royal Oppression, as that card just straight up shut off all special summoning. Light Imprisoning Mirror and Rivalry of Warlords would hit Light Swarm decks hard. Mirror of Oaths and Threatening War would be the classic counterplay to Gladiator Beasts. And finally, double Delta Crow Anti-Reverse along with Deck Devastation Fires would allow the deck to out anything that was heavy in spells, traps, stall and burn cards. Overall, this is such a complete list that it's hardly surprising Blackwings would win Worlds. It was a deck prepared for anything. Runner-up Chen Yanjui would use a Synchro Cat variant of Gladiator Beasts. The wide range of beast monsters in the archetype would make the synergy with Rescue Cat and X-Saber Airbellum a no-brainer. Rescue Cat was one of the strongest cards in the format and could easily guarantee you'd have a Synchro out that turn. With the deck being so heavily designed around battle and aggression, the inclusion of triple Cold Wave was also a no-brainer. Shutting off the opponent's spell and trap cards made sure your Gladiator Beast effects always got off, and that you could always attack over their monsters with the likes of Goyo Guardian. Triple Raboka was a requirement of the format thanks to the Blackwing archetype. The problem with Black Wings is that they could always just discard Collude the Shadow to go over your monsters in battle. If a Boku is active, then your Gladiator Beasts can survive the battles and get their effects off. Triple Judgment being mained by both finalists was a good indicator of where the game was at this point. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was fast, you had to go in quickly, hard, and without fear. Much like Black Wings, the side deck was also quite well prepared for this tournament. Legendary Jiu-Jitsu Master would send any monster that attacked it back to the top of the owner's deck. This made it a fantastic out for non-destruction monsters such as Blackwing Armor Master. It was also useful in the mirror match, as it stopped Gladiator Beasts from activating their effects after battle. Triple Enemy Control would be used not only for defensive purposes, but also to steal the opponent's monsters so they could be synchroed off with Airbellum. Soul Release would be used to empty the graveyards of any decks that used them for combos. Light Imprisoning would once again be used for the Light Swarm matchup, and Triple Threatening Roar would replace Waboku in the Gladiator Beast mirror. While I still think Blackwing was the best deck of this tournament, Gladiator Beast wasn't far behind. In third place we would have American representative Roy St. Clair. Now I'm not going to spend too long analysing this list. While Roy St. Clair was known to be a very skilled player, he was also notorious for cheating accusations, receiving multiple bans by Konami. That said, the build wasn't too different from the one which won the tournament. Double Gravekeeper's Spy does stand out, but it was a pretty good engine card back in 2009. Other than the inclusion of Triple Nobleman of Extermination in the side, there isn't really too much to say about this deck. Post-Worlds we would see more of the same from deck list, as the top two decks at Shonen Jump Indianapolis would be Blackwings and Synchro Cat respectively. If you compare Philly Luna's Blackwing build to that of Benjamin Tan, you'll see that there wasn't really much different. A few alterations in card ratios, but besides that it was practically the same deck. Synchro Cat on the other hand would be much different, as Crush Card Fire was actually legal still in the TCG. September 1st, 2009 would see the official release of Ancient Prophecy. Much like the sets before it, Ancient Prophecy would introduce several new powerful synchros and archetypes to the game. The most notable of these archetypes would be X-Sabers, a warrior-based synchro archetype. X-Sabers wouldn't quite be ready for tournament play at this stage as they were only in their first wave of support, but the potential was there. For example, X-Saber Full Troll had the effect where this card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card cannot be special summoned except while you control 2 or more face-up X-Saber monsters. Once per turn, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower X-Saber monster from your graveyard. Inside its archetype, Full Troll acted essentially as a power-crept version of Elder of the Six Samurai. The card to look out for, however, would be X-Saber Gothams, a level 9 Earth Beast Warrior Synchro monster with 3100 attack and 2600 defense. Its summoning requirements would be 1 tuner plus 1 or more Earth monsters, making it one of the few synchro monsters in the game that can be summoned exclusively with tuner monsters. You can tribute 1 X-Saber monster to discard 1 random card from your opponent's hand. This effect was not once per turn, which meant that if you had a full field of X-Sabers, you could tribute all of them, including Gothams itself, to hand loop your opponent. With the right support, this card could be a real threat in the meta. X-Sabers would further be supported by the trap card Reinforced Truth. Special summon 1 level 2 or lower warrior type monster from your deck. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. At face value, the card has limited utility, especially on your own turn, but the card could be useful if a compatible monster came along that had a decent floating effect. Ancient Fairy Dragon is a level 7 light dragon synchro monster with 2100 attack and 3000 defense. Its summoning requirement is 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. Once per turn, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower monster from your hand. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this effect. Once per turn, you can destroy a field spell card. If you do, gain 1000 life points, and you can add 1 field spell card from your deck to your hand. With the 3 Signer Dragons released at this point all being offense orientated, Ancient Fairy Dragon represented quite a departure, as its effects and stats were more suited to defensive and setup play. That all said, however, this card had the highest potential ceiling of any Signer Dragon thanks to its ability to extend your plays. Ancient Sacred Wyvern is a level 7 light fairy synchro monster with 2100 attack and 2000 defense. Its summoning requirements is 1 Light Tuner, plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. While your life points are higher than your opponent's, this card gains attack equal to the difference. While your life points are lower than your opponent's, this card loses attack equal to the difference. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can pay 1000 life points to special summon this card. Not quite as straightforward as Colossal Fighter, but still a very good level 7 alternative. Its attack manipulation effect is very win more, but I suppose the extra attack could curb an opponent's comeback. Fishborg Blaster is a level 1 water fish type tuner monster with 100 attack and 200 defense. If you control a face-up level 3 or lower water monster, you can discard 1 card to special summon this card from your graveyard. If this card is used as a Synchro Material monster, all other Synchro Material monsters must be water. You wouldn't think this of something printed as a common, but Fishborg Blaster had the potential to be the most powerful card in the entire set, and would come to be one of the pillars of the Fog Monarch engine. Fossil Dig is a spell card with the effect where you can add 1 level 6 or lower dinosaur type monster from your deck to your hand. With its ability to search a wider range of levels, Fossil Dig was arguably in some ways a better version of Reinforcement of the Army. Also featuring in Ancient Prophecy was Rekindling. Special summon from your graveyard as many fire monsters as possible with 200 defense. During the end phase, remove from play all monsters that were special summoned by this effect. In order to enable Rekindling plays, Konami made a decision to have the majority of newly released fire monsters have 200 defense. With that base requirement, Rekindling would only ever be as good as Konami wanted it to be. It was also around this time that we would see the release of a new Shonen Jump magazine promo. Tragodia is a level 10 Dark Fiend type monster with unspecified attack and defense and an effect that reads, when you take battle damage, you can special summon this card from your hand. This card gains 600 attack and defense for each card in your hand. Once per turn, you can send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard to target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls with the same level as the sent monster. Take control of that target. Once per turn, you can target 1 monster in your graveyard. This card's level becomes the same as the target's until the end phase. So what we had here was a hand-based monster with a more lax summoning requirement than Gore's, a stat manipulation effect similar to that of the god card's Life of the Sky Dragon, the ability to steal your opponent's monsters, but most importantly, a level manipulation effect that made it easier to set up certain synchro plays. Unsurprisingly, Tragodia would catch on in popularity very quickly. Arriving with Ancient Prophecy would be the September 2009 Forbidden Unlimited list. This list would go to great lengths to address numerous problem cards. Card of Safe Return, Dark Strike Fighter, Monster Reborn, and Crush Card Virus would all be banned. Card of Safe Return, Dark Strike Fighter, and Crush Card Virus in particular were absolutely necessary for the health of the game. They needed to go. Limited would see hits to Gale the Whirlwind, Rescue Cat, Cold Wave, and Solemn Judgment in order to address the heavy abuse of those cards in the previous format. Summon a Monk, Black Rose Dragon, Mind Master, 1-for-1, Demise King of Armageddon, Call of the Haunted, and Mind Control would also be limited. In semi-limited we would see the inclusions of Chaos Sorcerer, Masuki, Bottomless Trap Hole, and Lone Fire Blossom. Coming off the list altogether would be Rise of the Storm Monarch, Green Babu Defender of the Forest, BD Warrior Lady, Breaker the Magical Warrior, Fishshaw, and Destiny Draw. Overall, I don't think there can be too many complaints about this list. Blackwing and Rescue Cat decks needed the slap on the wrist. Moving on into November, we would see the release of Stardust Overdrive. Once again, the set would be a hit, as it contained numerous cards that would come to see play over the next decade and beyond. Archlord Christia is a level 8 light fairy type monster with 2800 attack and 2300 defense. If you have exactly 4 fairy type monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand. When you do, add 1 fairy type monster from your graveyard to your hand. Neither player can special summon monsters. This face-up card would be sent from the field to the graveyard. It returns to the top of the owner's deck instead. Once again we have an example of a future-proofed card from the 5Ds era. Christia wasn't always relevant, but depending on the format it always had the potential to make a comeback as a power card. Its ability to floodgate special summons was such a powerful play in the right deck. Add to that its ability to recycle a fairy monster from the graveyard and you had a powerful boss. Also included in Stardust Overdrive was a Pointer of the Red Locust. This trap card has the effect where you can pay 2000 life points and reveal all cards in your hand. Look at your opponent's hand and select one card. Remove that card from play until your opponent's next end phase. Now back in 2009 this card didn't see any play, mainly because Mind Crush did the same thing for less cost. That said, this card would eventually see play thanks to a combination of two things. The first would be the ruling change to Mind Crush. Previously, players would reveal their hands after being Mind Crushed just to prove they weren't lying. These days, there is no obligation to reveal your hand after being Mind Crushed. Not only did Mind Crush lose its utility as a hand information card, but there was always the risk that your opponent could now just lie about the cards they had in their hand. For these reasons, Mind Crush went from one of the most heavily sided cards in the game to a joke overnight. The other reason would simply be due to power creep. You see, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It's more common for monsters to have floating effects once they're sent to the graveyard, essentially making a graveyard act as a second hand. A Point of the Lotus gets around this by banishing the card instead. To top it all off, a Point of the Red Lotus allows you to look at your opponent's hand before the card is selected, something Mind Crush never did. Gateway of the Six is a continuous spell card designed to work with the 6 Samurai archetype, and reads, each time a 6 Samurai monster is normal or special summoned, place 2 Bushido counters on this card. You can remove Bushido counters from your side of the field to apply the following effects. 2 counters, until the end phase of this turn, 1 face-up 6 Samurai or Shien effect monster gains 500 attack. 4 counters, add 1 6 Samurai monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. 6 counters, special summon 1 Shien effect monster from your graveyard. While it wouldn't pop off immediately, Gateway of the Six did have a pretty powerful effect, especially if you were able to get 4 counters, as it gave you the utility to search for a 6 Samurai card. It goes without saying that this card became an immediate staple in the deck. Infernity Necromancer is a level 3 Dark Fiend type monster with 0 attack and 2000 defense. When this card is normal summoned, it is changed to the defense position. While you have no cards in your hand, this card gains the following effect. Once per turn, you can special summon 1 Infernity monster from your graveyard, except Infernity Necromancer. Remember how we talked about Infernity Archfiend earlier and how it was able to search cards when summoned? Well, Infernity Necromancer just so happened to synergize perfectly with it. With Necromancer now in the TCG, the deck had just enough backbone to compete. Level Eater is a dark insect monster with 600 attack and 0 defense. If this card is in the graveyard, you can activate its effects by selecting 1 face-up level 5 or higher monster you control. Reduce that monster's level by 1, special summon this card from the graveyard. This card cannot be tributed except for a tribute summon. Quick Draw Synchron is a level 5 Wind Machine Tuner monster with 700 attack and 1400 defense. You can send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard and special summon this card from your hand. You can substitute this card for any 1 Synchron Tuner monster for a Synchro Summon. This card cannot be used as a Synchro Material monster, except for the Synchro Summon of a monster that lists a Synchron monster as a tuner. It is no coincidence that Level Eater and Quick Draw Synchron were released in the same set. These cards were made for each other. Quick Draw Synchron could discard Level Eater to the graveyard to summon itself. Level Eater could then reduce the level of Quick Draw Synchron by 1 to special summon itself from the graveyard, giving you 2 monsters without even using your normal summon. Given that Level Eater's effect was not a hard once per turn, this card had potential for all kinds of shenanigans. Preparation of Rites is a spell card released to support what else but ritual monsters. Add to your hand 1 level 7 or lower ritual monster card from your deck. Then, you can add to your hand 1 ritual spell card from your graveyard. Assuming you have a ritual spell in your graveyard, this card was an immediate plus and actually went a long way towards making ritual monsters playable. Today, Preparation of Rites remains a staple in ritual-based decks. Even though it released late in the year, Stardust Overdrive wouldn't actually be the last set released in 2009. That honour would go to Hidden Arsenal. Hidden Arsenal would be the first in a series of side sets that were brought out alongside the mainline packs. They would contain 5 cards instead of 9, and every card in the pack would be a holofoil. While the set would not contain many cards, the cards it would contain would be meta-changing. Brionic, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, is a level 6 Water Sea Serpent Synchro Monster with 2300 attack and 1400 defense. 1 tuner, plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. You can discard any number of cards to return the same number of cards from the field to the hand. This card is the reason why Card of Safe Return was banned, as it had been wreaking major havoc in the OCG. You see, the problem with bouncing back is that cards such as Premature Burial exist. When Premature Burial is destroyed, the monster it is equipped to is also destroyed, but if Premature Burial is returned to the hand, the monster is not destroyed. Since Brionic was not a once per turn, you could keep activating its effect as long as you had cards in your hand to discard. As a result, you had a loop that gave you a grave setup, a draw engine, and a full board. It was just far too powerful to ever be legal in the TCG. Mistworm is a level 9 Wind Thunder Synchro monster with 2500 attack and 1500 defense. It requires 1 tuner plus 2 or more non-tuner monsters. When this card is synchro summoned, return up to 3 cards your opponent controls to the hand. The effect was very much a step down from what Brionic was offering, but that doesn't mean it was a bad effect. In fact, this was still a really good effect. It just so happened to release at the same time as a card with an insanely broken effect. Ally of Justice Catastro was a level 5 Dark Machine Synchro monster with 2200 attack and 1200 defense. It required 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters. If this card battles a non-dark monster, destroy that monster without applying damage calculation. It was an incredibly simple effect on an incredibly simple to summon card that could give you an incredibly simple out to most things your opponent put on the board. With the back-to-back releases of Stardust Overdrive and Hidden Arsenal, it's fair to say November 2009 was a pretty significant month in the history of the game. All the work done by the ban list to curb the game's power level was almost immediately undone. With all the pieces in place, here is how things would go down at Shonen Jump Columbus, as 2008 French champion Vincent Rambon Miedana would take the tournament with his Chaos Lightswarm deck, otherwise known as Tri-Light. Previous ban lists had seen hits to just about every deck but Lightswarm. As one of the only decks still operating at full power, it would be the strategy to beat going into 2010. Everything was here: Triple Dragodia, Double Judgment Dragon, Dark Arm Dragon, Gauze, Double Chaos Sorcerer, the entire unrestricted Lightswarm archetype, Triple Necro Gardener, Triple Solar Recharge, and Triple Charge of the Light Brigade. This deck was consistent, easy to set up, and had enough power cards to swing games. Second place would be a different story, however, as Kevin Slapnick's Zombie Destiny deck would be a mere shadow of what Dark Arm Dragon decks used to be. It wasn't a bad deck by any means, but it was trying to carry what was an outgoing metagame. Dark Armed, Malicious, Masuki, Gale the Whirlwind, Plague Spreader Zombie, these are all cards that had been hit in 2009, severely weakening the deck. It's not until you sit down and test these decks against each other that you realise just how far ahead Lightswarms are going into 2010. We can see this in Slapnick's side deck, as Kaiko, Threatening Roar, and Light Imprisoning Mirror were included to counter Lightswarms. In closing, 2009 would end with the game in something of a fresh state thanks to all the ban list hits. Lightswarms would be strong going into 2010, and there's no doubt that they'll be staying there for a while. The old strategies weren't completely dead, but they definitely had a weak matchup against it. That's all for now. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.